Hey, everybody, welcome back to All Things MSP. This is something new because we've got something new. We have now signed up our first premier vendor sponsor. That sponsor is SuperOps.ai. Extremely excited for SuperOps to be contributing to the success, the content, and everything, the purpose of what All Things MSP is here to do. And I apologize in advance. My allergies are really bothering me today, but we do this rain, shine, allergies, whatever. We don't care. We get this stuff done. So these vendor updates are meant to allow the vendors to come on and give you an idea of what's going on within their environment, right? What are they seeing from the MSP side of the channel? What are they doing to help the MSP side of the channel? And of course, there is nobody else better to do that than Juan Fernandez. He's, well known in the channel, a great educator in this channel. And if you don't know who he is, you need to find out who he is. Follow him on LinkedIn, buy one of his many books, whatever it is. But Juan, we're here to talk about SuperOps. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Eric. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the humble introduction. It's always hard to hear, how some of the things that I've done in my past have helped, and so really, really appreciate that. And again, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to have vendor sponsors engaging with this community because I believe that there are certain aspects that MSPs just don't learn on their own,
Sure.
right? And vendors, because they have a depth of people working in their organization, typically with a long history in this channel, just like you, they have a lot of important stuff to contribute.
Yeah.
But we are here to talk about SuperOps. So for anybody who's not familiar with SuperOps.ai, what is it and why should MSPs look at SuperOps.ai?
Well, and I'll give you just my take, right? Obviously being an MSP and playing one on daytime TV for so many years, it's really interesting when you think about the tools that we use in our day to day. So for many of the MSPs that are out there, maybe those who are just getting started or those that have an existing practice, we recognize there's some core tools, an RMM and a PSA. And whether you're gathering those from one or another, that's really what SuperOps is an RMM and a PSA. It's in a fully integrated platform. And so for those that are out there that may be using, one from somebody else and one from another, there's a reason why we do that, right? There's a certain amount of functionality. There's things that we're trying to accomplish. We feel comfortable with the way that those tools work. And that's the problem that SuperOps set out to fix, was not having that fracture between the two, that you could have something that worked together that was fully integrated. And that's what SuperOps truly is a fully integrated RMM and PSA tool. And so, when you think about a piece of glass and you rub your hand against it, if you got two pieces put together, you can always feel the edge. There's always
Yep.
something there. And that, in terms of, when you think about managed services, every time I have to go over a bump, there's some wear in the system, right? I have to, that causes some friction, or that there's some person that I have to inject into a reality to make a connection or watch for something. And in this term, when I think about it, it's really, since it's built together, it's meant to be together. You can't feel an edge. There's no fracture there. There's nothing in between it. You don't have to add additional people to manage it. It's just all together. And so that's really what it is. It's a next generation RMM PSA tool. And so for those that are interested in looking at it, I definitely encourage everyone to.
Well, and that really makes sense to me, right? Because as a former MSP myself, I had the traditional RMM, PSA separate tools. I was one of the first people to integrate the two that I was actually using.
And
And
they're,
yeah, because I saw the value in that,
yeah.
right? Because I had been doing it wrong for so long, I kind of had an understanding that these two really needed to work together.
Mhm.
But it is a problem in the MSP world because so many times we separate service delivery from the business or
Yep.
profit side
Yep.
of what we're doing.
Sure.
And by more closely intertwining those two, I imagine you gain some efficiencies, not just in service delivery, which is what traditionally RMM is supposed
Sure.
to do, but it also gains efficiencies on the business side, which is going to lead to greater revenue in or decreased costs, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think that way you think about it is, increased productivity. We don't always measure. We measure in time, but we don't measure in time lost. And if we measured in time lost in just the tools that we have that are, not necessarily fully integrated, there's a huge amount of time there. And you're like, man, I'm trying to push these technicians to 75% utilization, but like, even if I haven't quantifying all these time, like, where is this extra going? Like, why can't I get them past 65? Sometimes it's the tools that we use, right? And that's the challenge
Yeah.
when you think about the way that we're doing things is that, that time loss is a big deal. So, immediately a lot of MSPs that work with us, they're like, man, I got all this extra time. Like I'm able to quantify it differently. And it's like, yeah, because it's all built together. You don't have to worry about jumping fences every time you're trying to do something. So it's a lot of wear on the staff too. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, well, why isn't this working that way? Like, that's one more process that you have to build into what you're doing in your business. And like, I need you to do this, to do that, to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Oh, wait, we forgot H, I, J, K, L. Why? Oh, well, the
Because
tool
it
doesn't.
wasn't technician time. We've
Yeah,
been
exactly.
so
It's not
geared to be so concerned about technician time, we don't
exactly.
worry about everybody else's time. And the number one person, especially in the small to mid-size MSP, if the managers aren't working efficiently, if the owners aren't working efficiently, that's a huge problem because their time is the most valuable in the organization. But
Yeah,
most of the time, they spend that on the non-technical side, the business side. But if
sure.
that's not efficient, doesn't matter how many billable hours you have or how many, hours you're reducing against a billable contract. You know, that's important for sure because that's your inventory, right?
Hmm.
That's your cost of goods sold. But your most valuable resources are your managers, your owners. And if they're not operating efficiently, you're going to have big problems down the road.
Yeah, and that's where that's one of the things that we're just really thinking about. This next year, I'm actually going to start a show, and it's all about the mechanics of making money and managed services. And one of the things is all about just how do I actually like. That's not we don't talk about that because we can't focus on that. We often are forced by the tools that we use to focus on running and operating the business, not working on the business. We have to keep getting back in there because something's wrong, right? And that's the case. You can't just take the keys, stick it in the car, and drive it. Like it's like I have to go and like service the thing every single 10 minutes, right? So this is what we built, and this is what we're the problem that we're trying to solve is to just allow business owners to actually focus on the business and the way it runs, and we'll take care of the tools and the operations on the back end and allow them to just kind of figure out, okay, here's what I need to be doing, and all of it's presented to them in a meaningful way.
Yeah. And SuperOps, they've built what appears to be a really good product and,
Hmm.
they're going to market with it really strong. They're hiring people like you, but they're also not stopping there, right?
No.
They understand that the MSP channel is a little bit different and they need to engage it as a community. And with that, SuperOps.ai has just launched their new community. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Like it's taken off in the short period of time. So for those that are out there and looking at, one of the big things is it's all about the community. I say this all the time. Like we can all learn together. We all can, Matt Lee says, we all, we can rise the tide together. I 100% believe that. I've always been about that. One of the things that I struggled with in my early years as an MSP was I didn't know where to go. There wasn't a lot of that there, right? Like I hate to say it, but there wasn't a lot of boards out there. There wasn't a lot of that when I first started out. So now that there's a community, like I feel so at home, and I love the fact that SuperOps is doing this because it's giving everyone the opportunity to really come together, and again, bringing together wonderful people like yourself and others into those communities to have those conversations and really talk about things that are pressing is also helping us to help move the product forward faster as well. So it's just really a great opportunity. If you guys are interested, jump over to superops.ai, jump into the community. You guys can see everything. We're talking about, the product, all the roadmap is public. We're not hiding anything. We're having open conversations about anything MSPs have problems with or opportunities. So it's really fun. We're having a good time.
Well, and that's what a lot of this is about, right? It's about education, it's about sharing, it's about having fun because a lot of people are in this business for a lifestyle, not
Sure.
just profit. They want to profit too. Don't get me wrong. But we get into this because we like it, right?
Yeah,
And that has a certain aspect to it. Now, speaking of rising tides, we talked earlier about you guys are going to be having some MSP awards this year. Can you
we
talk
are.
for just a second about what those MSP awards are going to be and kind of
Oh
what's
man.
around that?
One of the things is celebrating others, right? It's a big thing, when you know you're doing a good job and you're helping others, it's really good. And those, even some of the events that we got coming up, I'll talk about that in a minute. It's all about sharing and caring. And I, of course, even with the book stuff that I do, it's live, learn, give, right? We live our lives, we learn things and we give it back and we share with others. And in terms of that, the awards that we're giving away here in December are, such as, we're going to do a whole awards about best onboarding, best customer success story, featuring the top woman in managed services, right? And those types of things, those types of awards that we're actually giving away are specific because we want to recognize the great things that managed services is doing. I remember when I was in mine, and I think about this, like no one patted me on the back. Like no one ever said, "Hey, good job." It was always like this grind. I was always like, "All right, I made payroll." That was about the best pat on the back that I got, right? Like those types of things. And so like when you get an award for something that you're doing well, you should be recognized. And we're all about that. So we are uh, definitely spending some time on putting together an awards. We got some judges that will be on there, and then we'll be having people submit and their stories. And we really are looking forward to featuring some wonderful folks.
Yeah, I had to mute myself there for a second because I did have to kind of laugh a little bit because it's so funny because when you and I talk, our stories are very similar, right, in terms of our
They are.
background. And the comment about, the pat on the back being able to make payroll, such a real thing, such a real thing.
It's real, right? Like I can't be anything other than real, man. We all come from there, man.
Yep. So I know that SuperOps is all about innovation and building kind of the next generation RMM PSA tool and kind of, looking into the future and seeing what, is going to happen and what, direction you're going to go. But what are some of the new things that SuperOps has done in the product recently that are new?
One of the big things is, we recognize that, again, if you think about putting things together and again, requests from MSPs, they're like, hey, I really wish I could do this. We take those seriously. And one of the things that had been asked for is a network monitoring tool. So we just launched that. And that was a big launch for us. And now we have a network monitoring tool. It's getting bigger and better. Like there's so many more things that we'll be able to do with that very soon. But one of the things is that full visibility into an infrastructure. And so it is awesome to see that. We got some really special stuff that we're doing on the back end with some new integrations that we're doing. So a lot of new vendors are coming to the table that want to be part of what we're building here. And so we have a different take on integrations as well. Instead of it just being a pop out to something else, like we're really thinking about how do we stitch this in so that you can't feel that edge, right? There's no edge there. It's part of the tool. So we spend time on those integrations. We got some really special ones that we just announced. But the real big one I think is the network monitoring tool. Our documentation, our internal documentation tool got a big kick there. So it's just really, really awesome to be part of something that's just really moving toward the needs of the modern MSP.
So it's kind of taking, and I hate to use the term, and I apologize in advance for using it, but it's taking single pane of glass to
Yeah,
kind of a different level, right?
it is.
Because we've had somewhat single pane of glass, but it's never been true. We've always had those edges that you talk about.
Yeah.
And it sounds like whether it's built within SuperOps or whether it's an integration being brought in, you're still trying to keep it under that one smooth piece of glass so that it all operates seamlessly.
Yeah. Some of our customers, I've come back and they're like, can you integrate into these other platforms? Because the way you can't feel the edge between us and like some of our partners that we have in here now, they're like, this feels like nothing else. Like I usually have to, I click something and it pops out to something else. Like it's literally part of it. And I'm like, that's the way it's supposed to be like that.
Yep.
Like it ties into everything, everything feeds in and out of each other. Like there's no fractures there. So we are working diligently on those types of things. So every one of our partnerships that we're really looking at will feel similar. And I'm of that same opinion. Like I am even looking at it saying like, I don't like that edge. Like we need to bevel that edge, right? So,
Yep.
you know, there's a lot of those things. And to your point, I hate the same thing, right? The single pane of glass. We just got jaded from that so early on that we heard about it, never got it. Now we're just like, we're never going to get it. It's a present you always wished for and you never got. And then when you get it, you're like, yeah, I needed this a long time ago. Right. But for those that are coming in, hey, the wonderment is for you, right? Because it's like, oh, you'll never know that you didn't need it, right? So, because it was
Yep.
always there.
And
But
there are still tons of people coming into this industry
I'm
every
so
single day.
I'll be honest with you, Eric. I was just talking about this. Like, I did a session recently, and there was like 100 people in the room, and only I said, "How many of you are MSPs?" Two raised their hand. And I said, "What do the rest of you do?" And they said, "We're just starting." And I was just like, my head, I was just blown back.
Yep.
Like, this is the new school, man. And I was just
Yep.
so impressed with how many innovative things they were coming to the table with. So the tool has to be something different for the next generation, and that's really what I'm excited about. Is because it's not anchored in the bay, right? It's actually free floating. It's able to move around and be dynamic. So really excited about that.
Awesome. And if people want to find out more about SuperOps.ai, where do they go?
Yep, SuperOps.ai. Come over and see us.
Awesome. Now, Juan, I just have to say, I really appreciate SuperOps being part of All Things MSP, especially from a financial standpoint, because we are growing. We are trying to do more for our community, and the content that you guys are going to provide, as well as the financial support, is also just so crucial. And we thank you very much for that, and look forward to doing more updates like this and some office hours and a lot of new content that will be beneficial to every MSP, whether they use SuperOps or not.
Hey, we just want to say thank you to Eric. Like, you've been here for quite some time. You have a great reputation, and we're all about building that community and helping, educate others and trying to erase those tides, man. And you've been a good champion of those things, and that's why we love, people like you that are doing those. So thank you for continuing to do that for the community because it does make a difference. It is making an impact, and we are proud to be part of it.
Well, it's that whole live, learn, give thing, right?
You got it, brother.
So, well, appreciate you, sir. And I will see you the next time we do one of these updates.
We'll see you soon.